We're getting close to the halfway point of the year, and believe it or not, we've already hit a lot of the major releases when it comes to the JRPG genre. With 2020 being a year of delays and reduced workload for a lot of studios, 2021 was always going to be a year full of wait and see when it came to release dates. As such, while the remaining list may seem short, there are still a number of releases that could squeak in at the end of the year, or surprises that we might get at E3. For now, let's look at what's confirmed, and then we'll dive into what could be on the horizon. There aren't too many new releases coming in May, however there are some remasters that might interest you in the meantime. If you're an Xbox owner and have yet to play the remaster of Final Fantasy X and X-2, or want to try it for the first time, the game is coming to Xbox Game Pass on May 13th. It joins Final Fantasy XI The Zodiac Age as well as a number of classic titles available through Game Pass, so if you're a fan of the series, you'll definitely get your money's worth with your subscription. Final Fantasy X is still one of my personal favorites, and while the remaster collection might be getting up there in age compared to some recent releases, the game still holds up well and is always worth a revisit, especially if you're looking for something to play in the downtime. Towards the end of the month, we have our second remaster, Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD Remastered, coming to PS4, Switch, and PC. The remastered third Shin Megami Tensei game is finally coming to the West after the remaster was released in Japan last year. Notably, it will be available on Steam, a move we're seeing more and more lately from JRPG games. If you're interested in revisiting the game or trying it for the first time, it will cost you $50 USD or $70 USD for the digital deluxe, which are both a bit pricey as far as remasters are concerned, at least in my opinion. If you're not a diehard Shin Megami fan, this might be a game to wait and check out some videos to see if it's your cup of tea before buying, but if you have no qualms over the price point, then by all means go ahead. As we go into June, things pick up just a bit with some new releases and highly anticipated DLC content. However, we start with another remaster. Neptunia Reverse will be coming to the PlayStation 5 on June 5th. The game is a definitive remaster of Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 1 and follows all of your typical action RPG standards. The franchise has had a number of installments across various PlayStation platforms, which might seem a bit intimidating at first, but Rebirth 1 was actually itself a PS4 remaster of the first Hyperdimension Neptunia game. As such, if you've been waiting to dip your toe into the franchise and didn't know where to start, this is the perfect chance to do so. The game is a PS5 exclusive, so if you want to experience the story, you'll have to settle for Rebirth 1 via PS4 or Steam. Final Fantasy VII Remake was one of the standout games last year and aims to do so again this year. As we anxiously await the next installment of the series, Square is giving us something to hold us over in the form of a somewhat controversial Intergrade. Now, Intergrade is two things. It is a visual and performance upgrade for next-gen consoles, with the PlayStation 5 having a 6-month exclusive period. For owners who purchased last year's version on the PlayStation 4, the upgrade will come free. The second part of Intergrade is the episode Intermission, which is going to be a story DLC that follows Yuffie. They say that this DLC will feature an expanded gameplay experience featuring multiple new combat and gameplay additions. And as an additional nugget, Tetsuya Nomura has said that part 2 of Final Fantasy Remake will pick up where episode Intermission leaves off. If you buy Intergrade for the PlayStation 5, the DLC is included, but for players who get the free visual upgrade for the PlayStation 4 version, this DLC will cost a separate $20 to get. Now, I mentioned some controversy, and that comes with the news that Yuffie's story DLC will only be a PlayStation 5 exclusive. Apparently, this is because it was optimized for the PS5 system, likely hinting that the game was as optimized as it could be for the PS4 release last year. However, the cynical side of me does see something else. To me, this is a very obvious ploy to sell more PS5s, whether by Square themselves or in partnership with Sony. Generally, I wouldn't have a problem with this, especially because in theory it could free up Square to push part 2 visually and performance wise if more people have the PlayStation 5 version, and they wouldn't be shackled to the previous generation. However, my problem comes when there is a shortage of PS5s currently. I mean, it's even hard to get a PS4 Pro right now, and the game released on the PS4 to begin with. It just leaves a really sour taste in my mouth, and a large portion of people who bought the original game will now be locked out of crucial story content and new gameplay. In that sense, it does feel like a bit of a slap in the face to consumers. However, my qualms aside, you'll be able to get your hands on Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade on June 10th on PS5 or your local gaming YouTube channel of choice. Next, we have another remaster in the form of Legend of Mana coming to the Nintendo Switch on June 24th. The original Legend of Mana released in 1999 on the first PlayStation, so this is definitely one for the nostalgia fans out there. As you can see, the game maintains its original look, but also features some new upgrades as well. The music has been rearranged and you'll be able to switch between the new and original soundtrack as you like. Other features include to turn off enemy encounters, as well as a brand new minigame. I don't have much history with Legend of Mana, but I do like that new fans will be able to check out old classics without having to search for emulators on the internet. On June 25th, we have a new release coming in Scarlet Nexus. Scarlet Nexus is an upcoming action RPG where you'll get to choose between two protagonists, Yuito and Kasane, and play through their respective stories to reveal the whole tale. They describe the setting of the game as a brainpunk future, and while Scarlet Nexus might not be anything revolutionary to the genre, as far as new releases go, it might be one that piques your interest. The sci-fi setting is always welcome as far as I'm concerned, and while Bandai can be very hit and miss with their releases, I'm hoping this new IP will be a successful one. The game's director and producer have worked on Tales series games before, and there is also an anime adaptation planned to release in July 2021. Scarlet Nexus will be available on PS5, PS4, Xbox One, Series X, and PC. Closing out June, the 6th installment of the Disgaea franchise will be released, called Disgaea 6 Defiance of Destiny on Nintendo Switch. The latest installment follows a new main character and features 3D visuals for the first time in the franchise history. It's been a 6-year wait for fans of the series, so hopefully this one lives up to their expectations. In July, we'll be getting a new The World Ends With You game in the form of Neo: The World Ends With You. For fans of the game, it's been a very long wait for the next installment of the series, with this game coming 13 years after the release of the first The World Ends With You. As far as in-game time goes, the sequel takes place 3 years after The World Ends With You animation, which was an adaptation of the first game, so if you need a quick refresher, that might be the way to go. Now, we did see some bristling between fans on Twitter, which seemed to center around Kingdom Hearts fans, wondering if there was some kind of connection between the two games. For the record, it has been stated that there's no connection between the two, despite a familiar building and a bonus scene for Kingdom Hearts 3, though I suppose we'll know for sure once the game is released. You can look forward to Neo coming out on July 27th on PS4 and Nintendo Switch. With nothing of note in August, the next release to look forward to is the new installment in the Tales franchise. Tales is finally getting the facelift it's needed and deserved in the form of Tales of Arise. Personally, I've been dying for the Tales series to get a visual upgrade, and we're finally getting that after a few year drought. It also looks like they're going for some gameplay changes as well, and we'll have to wait and see if this ends up being a step in the right direction for Tales. But as far as I'm concerned, Arise is just what the doctor ordered. You can pick up Tales of Arise starting September 10th on PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series X, Xbox One, and PC. Now, there are a number of titles that have been in production for a while or have just been recently announced for 2021, but they haven't been given specific release dates. Whether those games will actually be released this year or not is to be determined, but in my opinion, the summer will be a huge pivot point where we know what we'll get in the final quarter of this year. Even if E3 isn't back in its traditional form, we still have Xbox Event, PlayStation State of Play, and Nintendo Direct, and the summer remains a big period for the announcement of games. For me personally, the one game I'm hoping to hear about is Digimon Survive. I think it's fair to say that game has entered the stages of development hell and is in danger of never seeing the light of day. News on the game has been scarce at best, and when we do get updates, it's rarely anything substantial or encouraging. But that is what I'm still vaguely holding on to hope for. There are a few more games that have been in development for a while that we have yet to hear from, but most games on this list are simply too early in development to show off any real content. Here's hoping the summer is full of new announcements that will help reinvigorate the genre going forward. If you liked the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see future content like this, hit the subscribe button.